It started with a favor, the kind of simple, well-intentioned decision that doesn't feel dangerous until it's too late to undo. When Haley called, her voice was trembling. She said she'd left her boyfriend, that she had nowhere to go. I didn't even glance at Ethan before saying, "Of course you can stay with us." It was instinct. Compassion before logic. Empathy before caution. Ethan hesitated for a second, then nodded. "She's family," he said, as if that sealed the matter. And just like that, our guest room became her refuge. At the time, I didn't realize how easily one act of kindness could rearrange the quiet balance of a home. Haley arrived on a windy Friday evening, suitcase in hand, her long chestnut hair tangled from the drive. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired, fragile, yet somehow radiant in the soft porch light. "Thank you, Laura," she said, hugging me tightly. "You're saving me," I smiled, unsure how to respond. "It's nothing. You're welcome here as long as you need." That night, she joined us for dinner. My kids adored her instantly. Emma, 10, giggled at her stories, and Liam, 7, clung to her side like she was an old friend. Ethan seemed relieved to see her laugh again. He poured her a glass of wine, asked about her plans, and listened with a warmth I hadn't seen in him for months. Maybe that's what unsettled me first. Not what was said, but how naturally they fit into the same rhythm. Haley's laughter filled the spaces that used to be mine. After the dishes were done and the kids were asleep, I stood at the window, watching her walk barefoot across the backyard, phone pressed to her ear. Ethan joined me a moment later. "She's been through a lot," he murmured. "I know," I said. "I just hope she finds her footing soon," he nodded. But his gaze lingered on her, longer than it should have. In that moment, something fragile in me shifted. A faint, almost imperceptible warning that I brushed aside. I told myself I was imagining it, that exhaustion and overthinking were making me paranoid. But even then, deep down, I felt it. The quiet intrusion of another presence. Not a stranger, but someone familiar enough to slip in unnoticed. I didn't know it yet, but Haley's arrival wasn't a beginning. It was the first crack in something I'd spent years building. A marriage, a family, a sense of safety, and sometimes cracks don't announce themselves. They spread silently, waiting for the right moment to break everything apart. In the days that followed, Haley blended into our household with alarming ease. She moved through the rooms like she'd always belonged there. Laughing with the kids, helping with dinner, folding laundry, as though she'd memorized the rhythm of our lives. At first it was comforting, a helping hand, a distraction. But soon, her presence began to alter the air itself. Ethan was lighter when she was around, quicker to smile, slower to come to bed. I caught him glancing toward her when she spoke, his eyes soft in a way I hadn't seen in months. It wasn't deliberate, not yet, but it was intimate in its familiarity. One evening, I found them in the kitchen, shoulder to shoulder as they prepared dinner. She was teasing him about his cooking. He was laughing like a teenager caught in mischief. The sound should have been harmless, but something inside me bristled. "Smells good," I said, stepping in, forcing a smile. Haley turned, cheeks flushed. "Ethan's teaching me his pasta recipe. He says mine's too bland." "He's not wrong," I replied lightly, but the words came out sharper than I intended. Ethan looked at me, puzzled, maybe a little defensive. And for the first time in years, I felt like an intruder in my own kitchen. That night, I lay awake beside him, listening to the sound of his breathing. I wanted to ask if he noticed how often she laughed around him, if he felt how the energy between them hummed with something unsaid. But the words stuck in my throat. I was afraid that speaking them aloud would make them real. The next morning, Haley offered to help with the kids' lunches. "You've got so much on your plate, Laura," she said sweetly, pressing a hand to my arm. "Let me take something off it." I wanted to refuse, But I didn't. I watched as she packed sandwiches with careful precision, humming softly. The same song Ethan used to hum while making breakfast. It was in those quiet, ordinary moments that I began to sense the shift. Not a betrayal yet, but the echo of one forming. Small gestures accumulating like dust in corners. No one notices until the light hits just right. By the second week, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The glances, the inside jokes, the subtle electric current between them that excluded me entirely. Still, I said nothing. I told myself that families survive worse, that marriages bend without breaking. But deep down, I knew something fragile had begun to tilt, and if I didn't stop it soon, it would shatter completely. And the truth is, I didn't stop it. I simply watched as the balance slipped further out of reach. By the third week, unease had become part of the air I breathed. It was in the way Haley's perfume lingered in the hallway, long after she'd passed, in the faint laughter that floated from the living room, when I was upstairs putting the kids to bed. Ethan had started staying up later, claiming he was catching up on work. Yet, when I'd come downstairs for a glass of water, I'd often find them together. The television low, their bodies angled toward each other, a quiet intimacy hanging in the space between them. I told myself to trust him. That's what love is built on, isn't it? Trust strong enough to silence doubt. But the silence was growing louder, filling every corner of my thoughts. One Saturday, while folding laundry, I found one of Ethan's t-shirts in Haley's basket. I stared at it, heart pounding. It could have been a mistake. They'd both been doing laundry that morning. But it didn't feel like one. It felt deliberate, careless, or worse, familiar. That evening, I watched her from the kitchen window. She stood beside Ethan by the grill, laughing, her hand brushing his arm in a way that seemed too comfortable. He didn't pull away. He smiled. It was subtle, almost invisible. The kind of moment only someone deeply attuned to another person would recognize. But I saw it. I felt it. The boundary I had drawn in my mind was dissolving before my eyes. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I finally asked, "Do you think Haley's okay?" Ethan's voice was soft, distracted. "She's doing better. Why? You've been spending a lot of time with her." He turned to me, frowning. "She's family, Laura. She's been through hell. You'd rather I ignore her." "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying?" I didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound jealous or small. I just shook my head. "Forget it." He rolled onto his back, exhaling sharply. "You're overthinking again. Maybe I was. Or maybe I wasn't thinking enough." That night, I couldn't sleep. I heard Haley's door open softly down the hall, footsteps padding toward the kitchen. A few minutes later, another door creaked. Ethan's. I lay frozen, staring at the ceiling, every heartbeat echoing in my ears. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just listened to the house that no longer felt like mine, and to the faint sound of something breaking that I couldn't name yet. The morning after that sleepless night, I moved through the house like a ghost. Every sound felt amplified. The kettle's hiss, the creak of the stairs, the whisper of footsteps that didn't belong to me. Haley was gone when I came downstairs, but her mug sat in the sink beside Ethan's. 2 cups. One secret. Ethan emerged a few minutes later, his hair damp, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. "Morning," he said, as if nothing had changed. "Where's Haley?" "She went out early. Said she needed a walk." His tone was too casual, his eyes avoiding mine. Something inside me cracked. I walked past him, opened the laundry room door, and stared at the basket of folded clothes. There it was again. One of his t-shirts tucked neatly among hers. It wasn't evidence in the legal sense, but to me, it was a confession written in cotton. When Haley returned later, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes red from something she couldn't quite hide. She paused in the doorway, seeing me at the table. "Hey," she said softly. "Can we talk?" I asked. For a moment she hesitated, then nodded. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply asked the question that had been burning in my chest. "Are you in love with my husband?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. The silence between us stretched, long and suffocating. Finally she whispered. I didn't mean for it to happen. That was all I needed to hear. I felt the words hit me like a physical force, hollowing out everything I thought I knew. The air thickened. The walls seemed to tilt. I couldn't look at her. Not the woman I'd welcomed into my home. Not the face that mirrored guilt and desire all at once. When Ethan came home that evening, I was waiting for him. "Haley told me," I said quietly. He froze, keys still in hand. The color drained from his face. "Laura, don't," I interrupted. "Please don't insult me with excuses." He sat down defeated. "It was a mistake. I swear it didn't mean—" "A mistake doesn't happen twice," I said, "or behind closed doors." The weight of his silence confirmed everything she hadn't. That night, I packed her things into boxes. No screaming, no drama. Just the sound of zippers and cardboard closing over what was left of my trust. She left before sunrise, her eyes brimming with tears she didn't deserve to shed. When the door shut, the house exhaled. But peace didn't return with her absence. Only quiet. Heavy, suffocating quiet. And in that stillness, I realized the worst part wasn't losing him. It was losing the version of myself that believed it could never happen. 6 months have passed since Haley left. Though sometimes it still feels like she's here. Not in body, but in the subtle ways her absence rearranged my life. The house is quieter now. Too quiet, perhaps. The hum of morning chaos has softened into something slower, more deliberate. I make coffee for one, fold the laundry alone, and sleep on the side of the bed that no longer dips under anyone's weight. Ethan and I exist in a strange truce. We talk about the kids, the bills, the logistics of daily life, but never about her. The subject hovers like a ghost we've both agreed not to name. I used to think silence was peace. Now I know it's just a different form of distance. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself remembering the version of us that existed before. The laughter in the kitchen, the warmth of his hand, finding mine in crowded rooms. The quiet certainty that love was enough to keep us whole. I miss that woman, the one who believed in unshakable foundations. She vanished somewhere between suspicion and truth. Therapy helped, in pieces. I learned that forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone else. It's the slow process of reclaiming yourself. But even now, forgiveness feels fragile, like glass that could crack if I breathe too hard. Ethan tries. He checks in, makes dinner, asks about my day. His gestures are gentle, careful, almost rehearsed. I can see the guilt in the slope of his shoulders, the hesitation before he touches me. He wants to fix what's broken, but some fractures aren't meant to disappear. They're meant to remind us of what we survived. As for Haley, she hasn't reached out again. Part of me wonders if she still carries the weight of what happened, or if she's managed to fold it neatly away, starting fresh somewhere new. I used to hate her for what she took from me. Now I mostly pity her, because anyone who crosses that line doesn't walk away unscarred. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I stood on the porch and finally allowed myself to breathe, deeply, freely, without the ache of wondering what went wrong. The wind was cool, steady, alive with the scent of rain. That's when I realized something simple, yet profound. Survival isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or perfect closure. It's quiet. It's the decision to keep showing up for your own life, even after it's been shattered. I still let people in. I still believe in kindness. But now I understand its cost. Because sometimes the line you guard isn't between two people. It's between who you were and who you must become to keep going.